All right, welcome back to the Nick and Joe Show, folks. I'm Nick, he's Joe. I'm here in North Bay. I think I got it right this time. And he's in Canada. I mean Ipperwash. Windsor. No, wait. Ottawa. There he is, Ottawa.
Anyway. Unceded Algonquin land.
Oh, please. Let's not go down that road.
You know, somebody mentioned that to me the other day. And
tell them if they want it, they can pay to buy back the infrastructure we put in.
Well, no, my reply was, and the Algonquins, it was unceded from who?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Was it the Mohawks, the Iroquois, or what about the Hurons? We can't ask them because the Iroquois wiped them out.
I don't know. It's oh boy.
It's just plain crazy.
Are we going to get in trouble, Nick? I'm telling you.
Probably, but that's not surprising. And speaking of getting into trouble, this story, you know, Joseph, you and I both have a common passion, and that is for our the Queen's Senior Service, otherwise known as the Royal Canadian Navy, because both of us spent time in uniform in that branch of the service.
Nick,
there's a story today.
Nick, sorry to interrupt, but just next time you're in the studio, you should see the big Royal Canadian Navy insignia screensaver I have on my computer.
You know what I have,
now.
Joseph? You just remind me I should bring in. I have an architectural drawing of HMCS Annapolis.
Oh.
An outside shot and a split down the middle shot, so you can see all the compartments inside.
Okay.
I think we should mount that on the wall there.
I think we should do a little more, and a little more naval decorating would be in order, I believe.
You don't happen to have a 5,000-pound anchor around, do you?
I don't. But you know what we could?
I can't see us getting that up the stairs.
You know what we should, Nick? You know what we should do? We should. This should no longer be the Think Radio Broadcast Center. This should be the Ward Room.
Ooh.
I never thought of that. There's a great name for a podcast. Live from the Ward Room.
Oh, Joseph, that's a stroke of genius.
I know. Oh, well.
We should ask our listeners what they think of that. Call it the Ward Room. And how many would even know what a Ward Room is?
I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I think our audience is well educated enough to know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, the reason I raise all that is because out of the Ottawa Citizen today, we have this story. Now, here's the headline. Caught my eye because headlines like this I can't resist. Top-of-the-line Canadian-made naval equipment is shut out of $70 billion warship program. It's the biggest procurement program in our nation's history. $70 billion with a B dollars. Now, how we're going to afford $70 billion? Well, I suppose if you're going to go in debt $2 trillion, what's $70 billion, right? Anyway.
You know what they say, 100 billion here, 100 billion there.
Yeah, right, exactly. What's 100 billion amongst friends?
Pretty soon it adds up to something.
All right. Canadian, excuse me. COVID-18 gets you every time. Canadian equipment that taxpayers spent hundreds of millions of dollars to develop isn't being used on the country's new $70 billion fleet of warships because the consortium that won the bid, comma, they don't put a comma in there, selected its own affiliated companies and their foreign systems. A number of Canadian firms repeatedly tried to warn ministers and deputy ministers at the Department of National Defence, Public Services and Procurement Canada, as well as Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada, that they would be shut out of the Canadian Service Combatant Project, according to federal government documents obtained by this newspaper. Okay, here's a sentence we've never heard of before in this country. Those concerns were ignored. Instead, Canada left it up to the winning consortium, in this case the U.S.-controlled Lockheed Martin Canada and BAE of the United Kingdom, to determine equipment that would make up key components of the proposed 15-fleet Canadian Surface Combatant, or CSC, fleet, by selecting the consortium's Type 26 warship design for the shipbuilding program. The Royal Canadian Navy automatically agreed to what Lockheed Martin had determined was the best equipment for it to use. Okay, now, right here is a quote I want to share with you. Let's see, I'm just trying to figure out who sent it. The Canadian-based firms that build those systems employ hundreds of people in the high-tech sector. Okay. By selecting the design, Canada has selected associated equipment, said D&D spokeswoman Jessica Lamarend. She noted D&D is confident that we have competitively selected the best design to meet Canada's needs. Except for the fact that, look, let me depart from the article for a moment. We have a high-tech industry, one of the best in the world. They develop high-tech technology for navies, armies, and air forces all over the world. This isn't just, an easy bake oven that we use once in a while just to entertain the kids. They have weapon systems and communication systems and different things like that on German, Danish, and Dutch warships. The U.S. Navy uses them. We use them in our helicopters and on our other Halifax-class frigates. And we've poured millions of dollars into the development of these. So the question that I come to is, what's the point of having a high-tech industry capable of world-class and world-leading technological advances if we're not going to put them in our own newest, latest, greatest equipment? What's the point? Isn't this the same thing that happened? Well, maybe not exactly the same thing, but it's the same mindset that killed the Avro Arrow. You've got this great industry, and then you say, nah, sorry, don't need it, and you shut it down. Now, they haven't shut this down, but what are the consequences in the long run? Joseph, I don't know what to say to this other than what knothead thought this was a good idea. If you're going to open it up to contract to bid, then you should open up the whole program. So if somebody has a better power plant than somebody else, that goes in. If somebody has a better radar suite or sensor suite, that goes in. If somebody has a better, you list it, whatever it is, then that's what we should be looking for. Instead of taking a whole package deal that may or may not fit our particular needs. We're handing control of our weapon systems and our Navy over to foreign interests. Now, the Americans, I'm not too worried about. They're not the Japanese, or the Chinese, I mean. But we're supposed to be in control of our own outfit, are we not?
Well, particularly, as we pointed out off-air, when we've already made it a condition of the bid that the ships have to be built here in Canada, and I guess it's the Davie shipyards that are building them. I believe they're building all of them, if I'm not mistaken, Nick. So the point is that we are not above attaching some conditions to the construction of the ships. And I think you're quite right. Again, I don't see why the Canadian government could not, through the procurement process at the defense, national defense, have said, look, we want to have Canadian technology incorporated into this ship. Now, I suspect, I don't have any evidence of this, but again, just knowing how government works more and more today, and I hate to say it, but the lower quality, the slowly sinking quality of thinking that goes into the whole process, whether it's this or that or the other thing, here we are again. Probably there are bureaucrats who looked at this and said, there are officials from whoever the contractor is, who sit down with planners here in Canada, and they tell the Canadian planners, look, if you guys insist on doing this, we're not going to bid on the job. And like the gullible nincompoops that they are, I'm sorry, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not being fair, but I suspect there's an element of this, Nick, and that is that they go, oh no, we can't have no bidders on this job. So what we're going to do is we're going to cave into their demands immediately, 100%, right from the word go. And what are those demands? Those demands are you buy the whole package or you don't get any of it. Look, these contracts are so large. The construction, the employment, everything is so long and so large, and there's so much money tied up in this, that one thing I could guarantee you is nobody's walking away from these contracts because the Canadian government said we wanted to use Canadian technology as part of this process. It's just not going to happen. So, basically what I suspect happens in these cases is that the contractor, the potential bidders, say boo, and the Canadians who are in charge of the program or administering the bidding process, they blink, they get afraid, they get cold feet, and they don't bargain as effectively and as vigorously as they ought to. So I suspect there's an element of that. But I'm going to come back to something even more fundamental than just Canadian technology, Nick, and that is this. I understand that buying the vessels from a contractor offshore, even though we're having them largely built here in Canada, but I understand that there's probably some savings in that. But I also feel very strongly that we have, or we ought to have, a large and robust enough Navy and Coast Guard that we could, if we wanted to invest the money, support an ongoing shipbuilding industry here in Canada. We used to have a very robust shipbuilding industry here in Canada, but it's gone away now. And I think that there's possibility here of rejuvenating, reinvigorating Canada's shipbuilding industry. And I would be prepared to entertain the idea of paying more for those ships and have them designed and built right here in Canada by Canadians using Canadian technology, Canadian designs, etc. I'd be prepared to pay for that, within reason, of course. It's easy for me to say that without having numbers in front of me, but that's been my sense for a while, and I just think there's room for that, and I wish that there was more thought put into it.
Well, first of all, I think you're right. There certainly is a market for considering the age of most of our surface fleet, be they civilian or military, and how what kind of lifespan they have. A ship has about a 20-year lifespan. So when if you want to take this back to the end of World War II, they built the steamers that you and I sailed on to replace the World War II fleet. They built 24 of them. If 2 years after they launched the first one, okay, that would be, let's say you build one every year or every other year, that would make that one about 10 or 12 years old. And what you do is you put the last number 25 in the water, and then you build another one, so that by the time the first one or two start to hit the end of their life cycle, you can sell them off to a third world country. You can do whatever you want with them, strip the technology out of them that's in them, and you always have a skilled workforce building new ships, building better ships based on technology as it advances. We don't get left behind and have to reinvent the wheel every 40 or 50 years to catch up again. That's number one. Number two, the benefit